and it's time to roll, baby, on MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Go. This is what we doing while we do it, baby. We rollin'!
Covering MMA from all over the world, this is the premier stop for all your combat sports needs. MMA Junkie Radio, the only show broadcasting live from the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. The lights are on and the mics are hot. It's time to get your MMA fix, junkies. Take it away, Big John.
Gorgeous George and Goes, are you ready? Junkie Nation, are you ready? Well, let's get it on.
From the fight capital of the world inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, it's MMA Junkie Radio, the only show that matters. I am Goes, that's Dan Tom, and our leader, of course, is Gorgeous George. Back east, in the producing seat, it's Jumbo Josh. He's back.
I'm jealous of Jumbo Josh.
Are you?
He's going to the fights tomorrow.
Oh,
boxing.
That's true.
All I kept hearing was Randy Gordon say, ringside. I was like, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. Are you, Josh, be honest. You're with an entourage tomorrow, right? But are you, like, kind of turtle?
You got to repeat that, my friend. Say that one more time.
Said you're going to be with an entourage tomorrow, right? Some heavy hitters when you go to the fights.
Oh.
But are you kind of like turtle?
When it comes to the At the Fights crew, so you're. This is an interesting question. So At the Fights is entourage. Who am I in that group?
Yeah.
Jerry
Right,
is.
well,
Vincent.
Cooney's definitely Vinny. Yeah, I mean that's
Chase.
clear.
But I think Randy's Ari, right?
No.
No, Marissa's Ari because she's the power broker.
Is she
runs
going?
the shit. No, she's not going.
Well,
but
that's
in the dynamic, though, I would say she's Ari.
I
A
guess.
lot more level-headed, let me say.
I think Randy's more than an Eric, though. E was the second biggest name.
I think
right?
he's E.
Randy?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Marcos Villegas is going, too.
Okay.
So now the question is he Turtle or is Josh Turtle? I think Josh might be Turtle, unfortunately.
Josh, you turtle?
I want to make a case for him to not to be Turtle, to just be Johnny Chase, but I think...
I think I'd rather be turtle than Johnny Chase, though.
Well, yeah. Didn't he wind up dating Jamie Lynn Sigler?
Oh, that's in real life, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was able to shed some weight and pull it off.
I've been turtle a few times.
Yeah. All right. We're going to have some fun today. Going to obviously preview UFC Rochester, also known as UFC on ESPN plus something. I stopped keeping track, but I think it's plus 10, right? Or
Yes,
11.
sir. Yep.
It is plus 10.
10.
All right. I mentioned that because tomorrow when we tweet, it'll say hashtag UFC Rochester. But Junkie, we like to use a numeric system, and we've been going with UFC on ESPN plus 10. And then if you're really, really keeping track, you don't want to go the past. It's technically a fight night, and I think this one's fight night 152. And there's also the one UFC Rafael Dos Anjos versus Lee. I think it would be Dos Anjos versus Lee. So many titles out there, it kills me. But don't get distracted. Tomorrow the fights are in Rochester on ESPN Plus and on ESPN Do. And it's going to be fun. They found a replacement. Derek Krantz is stepping in for Neil Magny to face Vicente Luque. That's no longer the co-main event, but still, that was a big deal yesterday. And
At least you get a payday, right?
who?
You get a candy bar?
Luque?
Yeah.
Luque gets
You're
a
Vicente
payday, and
Luque,
he's
you
facing
could've
a
missed
guy
out
on 5 days. Yeah,
They
5
still have
days
to pay
notice.
their coaches and all that. That could have been a nightmare scenario.
Mhm.
Or who knows? Maybe the coaches say, hey, we feel you.
I think the coaches. We can ask Eric Nixick next time he's here, but I think Eric would be the first to tell you if he didn't fight,
That's
we
just
don't
life.
get paid. Yeah, yeah. All right. So look, we'll be talking about that fight card, and if you want to call in and maybe chime in on the main event or anything you want, it's 877-FIGHT-93, 877-344-4893. You can also hit us up on Twitter at MMA on Sirius XM at any point during the show. We check it a couple times during the show, and it's a good way for you to communicate with the hosts, not only on this show, but all of the hosts and producers and co-hosts and special guests on all of the different shows on this network here, Fight Nation 156, Luke Thomas Show, Busted Open, At the Fights, MMA Tonight. That's a lot of people. Misha Tate, Dan Hardy, RJ Clifford.
Jimmy Smith.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of names in there that you can, put an @ sign in front of, along with at MMA on Sirius XM, and many times you will get a reply. All right, so today we're going to talk to Rashad Evans. He'll be coming up later on. We'll talk to him a little bit. He's on the broadcast team for ESPN So, we'll talk a little bit about Dos Anjos and Lee. He was in Niagara Falls on Instagram. I spotted him. I was checking my Instagram, and he took a picture with his mom. Rashad Evans used to always imitate his mom. So as I saw his mom, I kind of, remembered the voice he would use. Rashad. Remember?
Yep.
When he would do those impressions? And it was kind of funny because he alluded to that in the post. But when I saw Rashad Evans, Niagara Falls, you know what it made me think of, Goose?
McDonald's.
He was at a McDonald's once in Niagara Falls, and he told us a very classic street fight story.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
It's in the top 5, I think.
I jokingly sent him a text and said,
that's a fun top
hey,
5
man, you going to go by that Mickey D's for round 2 if you spot them the other side? Because I didn't really remember the details. Although, picture this. I think there was a guy named Larry Arnold in his crew. For some reason, I don't know why that story just stood out to me. I think the guy's name, and I don't remember like co-stars or sidekicks or any supporting actors in street fight stories. I don't remember those names usually, other than like, oh, it was my dad, it was my sister, it was my ex, it was my this. I don't remember the names, and I think his name was Larry Arnold. So if I can sneak in that question, I will.
Hey, Arnold.
Yeah, and also Ricardo Lamas fighting at UFC 238.
Yeah.
He's got a fight coming up, so we'll talk to him. He'll be coming in after Rashad. All right, guys. So, starting things off, which way do you want to go?
Let's go with the bad news.
Sage Northcutt?
No, the bad news.
Bad news bears?
What bad news?
Tyron Woodley?
Oh, okay. I thought that was like even worse news since 12:30 p.m.
I was
Pacific.
double checking too.
Yeah, Tyron Woodley is out of his fight versus Robbie Lawler. That sucks. Apparently he's got a hand injury, and he won't be able to fight on June 29th. So the UFC's headed to Minneapolis. He was going to rematch Robbie Lawler. If you'll recall, he took the belt from Robbie Lawler. So this would have been a nice rematch for Lawler because that's the guy that ended his title reign.
Yep.
And for Woodley, it would have just been a credible name for him to put himself in a position to get a rematch versus Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman is all but locked in. Though, that said, we haven't seen a bout agreement or an announcement, but it sounds like him and Colby Covington is going down. Now, again, the scenario that Goes ran by when we were talking about Max Holloway and Frankie Edgar, I mean, unless it's a classic, who's next? Well, Woodley apparently signed on to fight Lawler, thinking that if I can get that win and I can impress, then I should be able to slide in and get a shot at winning my belt back. I mean, he had multiple title defenses. He just wasn't the most popular fighter in the UFC. But I think he's acted pretty gentleman-like since the loss to Kamaru Usman. So I think he's definitely on the UFC's radar. But you got to go out there and you got to impress. So that fight's off. But this morning, man, I was buried in tweets. Not to me, but just in reading people's tweets. So many people wanted to stand up, and it reminded me of the depth of 170 pounds. The first one I saw was Leon Edwards. I'm 7-1. I'd like to step in. Then I saw a retweet. It was Bilal Muhammad's post, and he was actually retweeting Darren Till. Darren Till was saying, I can meet you, Robbie Lawler, but at 175. Remember, Till's one of the heavier 70s. So he's saying, I just don't have enough time, but if you want to bang, let's do this. And Muhammad said, I'll make 170. So that's 3 names. And then Brian Barberina was also posting, hey, I can mix it up. I'd love to get in there. And then there was a 5th, Fernanda Prates. She actually
I saw that.
Put her name in as well because she felt left out. She thought everyone else is doing it, so she wanted to participate. But
I'll put odds on that.
What are the odds? Who do you got?
I would give Nanda, probably the plus, 20. You really gonna make me put odds on that? No, man, throw me under the bus there.
Yeah, Fernanda's got a kicker's chance. I've seen her hit the pads, and she's got a nice head kick. So anyway, those were a lot of names, and you know what? It got me excited. It just got me thinking, wow, whoever we plug in there, it sounds like these other guys are ready to go. And guess what's 1 week after the show in Minneapolis? Here in Vegas, we got UFC 239, and if they're still going to throw us some matchups last minute like they did to Chicago, Cerrone and Ferguson, here you go. Here's a gift. I'll take a gift of whoever's left from those welterweights that don't, match up against Lawler.
Of all those call-outs, Which one stood out the most to you?
I'll tell you who
Go
I
ahead, you
like.
go first.
I don't want to say it stood out because then it becomes a popularity contest. Of those names that George said, I like the Leon Edwards one because it gets him back in there. A big name. He deserves it. He's kind of like that Alexander Volkanovski of the division in a way where he's got that quiet winning streak. But actually, the name that I like is Eliezer Zaleski dos Santos.
Yeah,
Yep.
Ooh.
Yeah, throw him in
You
there.
went with a wild card.
he did.
You already
That's
get the
a
name value.
good one.
You already get the name value with Robbie Lawler. You just need the dance partner to deliver now.
You said
But this is a main event. And see, that's a hardcore dance partner.
It's a former champion though on the other side and an action fighter. So
True.
I feel like that carries a lot.
I'm
of
just
weight.
wondering if Minneapolis 9 out of 10 go who, because they don't know about the streak that Dos Santos is in. We know, you know, we know how good he is, but I just wonder if the person purchasing the ticket says who.
you said Bilal Muhammad offered as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now here's what I think is completely ballsy about
And
that. He's observing
Wisconsin,
Ramadan.
Milwaukee. Ooh,
Oh, yeah.
that's right.
Now
Good
he's
point.
fought before during those circumstances,
Right.
but I don't know at an accelerated rate like this.
Yeah,
That is like a real ballsy move. Robbie Lawler's no joke, and to be
I didn't think of that.
thrusted into that situation to fight, and on top of that, being in the middle of Ramadan, that's like all balls and guts, dude.
Hard
to
not-
want to do
Big
something
time.
like that.
Hard
Tip
not
of the
to
hat.
root for Bilal,
Like
man.
if you're Dana
Yeah.
White, don't you look at that and go, you know what? Even though you may not get it, that's my dog right there. I need more guys like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I like that.
And here's another name that's floating out, and I failed to mention him when I was listing the names.
Okay.
I didn't see the tweet, but Santiago Ponzinibbio has not been matched up.
Mm.
He's also someone who carries a Leon Edwards type of run, like an 8-1, like a Dos Santos, like a
Right.
7-1, or whatever they're at. He has that sort of a run going. Except I would argue that he might even be ahead of those guys because he's kind of been main eventing fight nights
right.
and maybe higher profile names. So, I'd love to see his name thrown in there. And then lastly, Till isn't on a run. He's lost 2 in a row, but he's Tyron Chill for crying out loud, and
Right.
and he's popular. So he's maybe that guy where you run to say, hey, I'll watch the main event. Here's my 170 or whatever the tickets cost. I want to sit octagon side.
Just seeing him take that Masvidal left hand, though. I don't know if I want to see him take that Lawler left hand. The guy needs to get a win. But I like that you mentioned Ponzinibbio, George. He's a guy I mentioned too because I feel like they didn't. I don't know if they didn't capitalize enough. It's rare you can get a guy to come out on top of his market in Argentina in the main event like that. But then, how about RDA? He's like subtly, he's not a trash-talking guy, but in these interviews, he's like casually giving away like drama. I can't remember what he said on like the couple interviews before, but he was explaining something like about the matchmaking process, and like he kind of gave away something
The fighters that have been offered. A lot of times they don't do that.
He doesn't even realize. I don't even think he realizes. He's not even trying to like stir stuff up to be controversial. He's just being honest. That's the kind of guy RDA is. And then this week on the ground with Matt Erickson, you can go check these interviews that I'm referencing, guys, on MMA Junkie's YouTube channel. He's like he was talking about Ponzinibbio. I was asking for him. I signed the contract with him, but I was told that they're punishing him because he was trying to play hardball. So now they're not going to let him fight anybody above him in the rankings. So now he's stuck. And I was like, oh jeez. I was like, oh my
Settled.
God.
A lot of people don't realize that even just saying who else they offered you could really kind of mess with a matchmaker, because a matchmaker could be telling somebody something completely different. And now that fighter's going, oh, wait a minute. They offered you that fight, huh? Well, they told me I was going to fight you over here. I think you're actually supposed to keep that under wraps. So for RDA to be doing that, it's kind of ballsy. And on top of that, what you said, that's bad, dude.
It was great because I had to like actually rewind it because in my head I'm like, yeah, you train real hard. Typical answers that would come from that type of fighter.
Correct.
And then I'm like, oh wait, he's actually saying like gossip and dirt here. I'm all rewinding it.
Well,
I'm of the opinion that the matchmakers do something similar to what we do when we schedule.
Uh-huh.
And that's you reach out to
Well,
about
hey,
5,
don't
6
tell
different people.
And we're going to look like jerks.
The later they're coming in, the more you start pressing, going in certain directions. And then there's times where I walk in here and I give you guys a look. Oh, add so-and-so, because the text came in. And next thing you know, we have 5 or 6 interviews.
All right.
I think that the matchmaker, look, if you call a fighter, they don't answer and you send them a text. And let's say that guy's ziplining in Colombia jungles or something like that, right? And he's just not checking his social or his text or emails or anything like that. Well, the matchmaker's not just going to sit there and twiddle their thumbs. I mean, they got to start making some moves. And if I'm a matchmaker, I'd probably let them know you're not the only guy I'm reaching out to. So I'd like to hear back from you, within 2 to 4 hours. And yeah.
Yeah, no.
I want to rewind a little bit.
Okay.
Let's go back to Tyron Woodley. What does this mean for Tyron Woodley?
All right.
This hasn't been his first injury.
Let's tackle that when we come back from
All
break. All right, that's a good segue there. We need to talk about Tyron Woodley's career. I don't think this is the type of injury that's going to set him back like a whole year. Like, see you next July or next May or nothing like that. But still, all these other fighters we mentioned are hot. And if one of them can strike while the iron is hot, then, maybe they jump ahead of Tyron Woodley. So we'll see. Let's position where Tyron Woodley is in his career when we come back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, channel 156.
Big shot! It is over! Tyron Woodley is the new UFC welterweight champion of the world! Wow!
They were abducted by aliens and instantly returned for raiding all their snacks. They are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
All right. We were talking about who should replace Tyron Woodley in his fight versus Robbie Lawler June 29th in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But let's talk about Tyron Woodley himself. Where would you say he stands now? How much of a setback is this going to be to his career?
It didn't sound like it was too bad for him. Tyron's a guy that I think has never really wanted to take very big chances. I think he's very calculated. So I think he's just going to let that heal up. It shouldn't take too long, especially if he was talking about the UFC was talking about just moving it to another card. And usually whenever those type of talks come in,
Tyron said that?
Yeah, it's because it wasn't that big of a deal, right? If he were to say, I don't know when my next fight's going to be.
Well, that would suck for Minneapolis, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like, by the way, you're a fan of Darren Till, the Darren Till accent. How about how the way he said all the different iterations of how people say Tyrone?
Yeah.
How about Darren Till's Tyron? Tyron. But when
I've
Tyron
always
says so.
liked that.
But no, I think that standard matchmaking, you go forward and you pitch them and you use the title name and the former champ to put over other guys. And, me being a contrarian, I'm not a fan of that. I'm more of a fan of the smart matchmaking. And I'll just repeat what I said to Tyron last time he was on the show, where I feel like he's in that fun fight territory. Now, critics of Tyron Woodley would be like, well, wait a minute. Well, what about his style? What about certain performances? And even if you point to those performances, that's why I say smart matchmaking, because we've seen it before. It is a real hardcore example, but Francimar Barros versus Nikita Krylov back in 2016 in Zagreb. And Barros is the most lowest output fighter. He's probably my least favorite fighter to do footage on. That's how low output. He doesn't do anything, right? And you have a guy like Krylov who's at 30 fights. He's had 30 fights, and 2 of them have been out of the first round, right? It's the polar opposite. And the smart matchmaking there is it makes the guy who you can criticize as boring, you pair him with a guy who's fun and makes him come out of his shell. And look at the Cowboy Cerrone. I don't want to directly compare Cerrone to Woodley, but look at the Cerrone platform. He would burn out when he would make those strides to get to the title. Now, Tyron made a long stride to get to the title, and he won when he got there, right? Whereas Cerrone has yet to do that. But how did Cerrone get himself back in the picture, especially a guy like Cerrone?
Frequently fighting.
Not just frequently fighting, but taking these fun fights now, kind of, right? And he's moving more toward that direction, and that's going to get him in the title picture.
He was also old guy giving young guy a chance. Till didn't get over until he beat Cerrone. What was it, in Czech Republic or one of those countries?
Yes.
So he actually did, he was a team player for the UFC.
Exactly.
He was a frequent fighter. He moved up a division, then he moved back down. And along the way, he's picking up bonuses, making money. And who can forget Cowboy? I'm telling you, people walk by here on the Las Vegas Strip. Hey, name your favorite fighter. Conor McGregor. Who else? Ronda Rousey. Who else? Brock Lesnar.
Right.
All right. And once you get through some of those, I bet you don't have to go too far before someone goes Cowboy.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And to your point, George, he beats Ferguson, then he's immediately in the title picture, and he wasn't even trying to be in the title picture. That's the irony of it.
True.
So I think that's ironically the best way for Woodley to get back into the title picture.
Now, here's one thing, though, that's going to stand out. And as soon as I say it, I think you guys are going to know why I don't think Robbie Lawler gets moved off.
Okay.
This fight is taking place on June 29th. That's our dad's birthday. It's taking place in the Target Center. That doesn't matter. Minneapolis, Minnesota. That also doesn't matter. But it's on UFC. It's called UFC on ESPN 3. So it's on the big ESPN.
The second try
their mothership,
right?
Yeah, you're right, because that was supposed to be in Sunrise, Florida.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're there, ESPN's going to go, yeah, player, you're not going to give us.
Who does it scratch?
You need to give us some big. You need to leave Lawler there. ESPN wants a draw, and Robbie Lawler's name is a draw.
But ESPN.
So I don't think they would grab Lawler and Woodley and move them to another card. I think Lawler would say, if it was a fight night, then I think they'd go, yeah, sure, it's on the plus or whatever.
But based on your reasoning, which I agree with now, doesn't that kind of scratch, let's say, Bilal Muhammad? They're not going to take that, right?
Plus, now that you bring up Ramadan, let's just put him on Sacramento, San Antonio, Las Vegas, Anaheim, one of those.
Okay, so that scratches him out.
Let's give him his proper.
Darren Till, is that good enough for ESPN?
Yeah, because Lawler technically is he coming off 2 losses?
I believe so. I'll look it up now.
And Leon Edwards?
I don't know. I would tell Edwards and Ponzinibbio, they're both streaking. You two collide. You see what I'm saying? Or Dos Santos. Same thing. Dos Santos. You or Edwards or Ponzinibbio or whoever's there, you guys collide towards the top.
2 losses in a row, and I hate mentioning guys like this that I like, because I don't like guys that I like taking short notice fights because they could lose, especially when they come off of devastating KOs. But what about piecing together the long talked about Robbie Lawler versus Stephen Thompson fight?
That's never happened.
It was talked about. Remember the Tyron took homage because
that'd be a nice fight.
Stephen was calling for Robbie to beat Tyron in their first match, and
he declined to fight on the South Carolina card because he still wasn't ready, I guess.
Too soon, yeah.
So
that was clearly too soon, but is this clearly too soon? You know what I'm saying? I guess that's what I'm asking, playing devil's advocate.
Well,
I'm not a big fan of that.
That's his first one, technically.
Can I throw another line out there?
Sure, yeah.
What if they're just waiting to see what happens with this card? What if, say, Kevin Lee wins? Can you throw Kevin Lee in there?
I feel like Miles are going unless Dos Anjos really clips him early, which is possible. Miles are getting put on both guys in this fight. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, but it's a good train of thought.
Hi. The reason I say Kevin Lee is because
Thanks, sir.
I think you can get Kevin to do just about anything for money. Did you just say thank you, sir?
No, I think Zari.
Oh,
Okay, I was like,
oh, thank God you didn't hear that.
it's not my gut.
Zari?
Yeah, we thought
I
you
just
said
said it
thank you,
low.
sir.
I just said thanks, Zari. Like that.
Because I think you can get him to fight for heavyweight for enough money.
Who?
Kevin Lee.
Kevin Lee.
Me.
Yeah. I don't like the quick turnaround. There are able bodies
Nobody likes the scenario,
ready
though.
to step in, and so I would rather that not happen.
But
Look,
you just set a bar with ESPN.
You're right, I did. If any of those guys do say yes, cool, but I don't know that. I don't know. I'd rather tell them no.
I think they're waiting for not this Saturday, guys. I think they're waiting for this Sunday to see who takes the throne, and then they're going to go from there. I always got to throw in one
Guess
Game
what?
of Thrones for the rest of per episode now, guys.
You ready to be happy?
Yeah.
This is probably the last week you'll ever hear us talk about Game of Thrones because
Yeah.
this Sunday is the series finale.
That's
It's
right.
over.
This one hasn't bothered me as much. The only thing that bothered me was when I heard when people were saying I've never seen finer television in my life.
Yeah,
Dude, it is
that's
pretty
not-
good.
This moment was better than my wedding. You know, I was like, come on.
Who said
man.
that?
I don't know. I just saw everyone's trying to top each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is the greatest moment of my life. And
It's just, you know what it is? Everybody loves popcorn movies, right? Those summertime blockbusters. And this is like the popcorn movies for TV series, except like by the statistics, you're a big stats guy. There's never been this much, money put in for actors and special effects. So
There's a
just
lot
that
on the
alone,
line.
even if they fail, that alone is just going to please the general public who are just like, give me more. These same savages out
That's
here
good.
who are just like the same savages who are out here saying there's still not enough UFC for them because there's a couple weekends left in the calendar year that the UFC doesn't have their mark on.
Mm-hmm.
well, I would say like if I think about my greatest moments, usually I point them towards sports. Like when I witness something, I guess. And I've been to the World Series and like that comeback against San Francisco 11-10, the 2 back-to-back Game 7s for the Lakers. All that was a process, man, of getting your ticket and then going and then watching the game and knowing like
San Antonio will never be top. Though.
San Antonio, when the 49ers beat Dallas. I mean, I came back, I was hoarse, I lost my voice, and so I'm thinking I'm actually supposed to watch 60 minutes of television and go, wow, that's better than my experience in San Francisco. Fuck no, I don't think it could come close.
Two different things, but I will say, and I think this is a strong second in your opinion, George, because I'm not a sports guy and I'm not a football guy. But to your point, I think they're two different things, but at the same time, you play me The Run, O.J. Simpson, The Run. I saw that in a documentary and that for the old UFC footage.
Bronco?
No, OJ is in college when he was in UFC.
Against
they
UCLA?
call
When he
it,
went
or
back and
UCLA,
forth?
yeah. And just that, the camera running and watching, like that was art in motion. Like I got chills now. And again, I'm not a football guy. I'm not a typical sports guy. I know I get crap, for that, but I can admit when things are good. And to me, that was like art. That was beautiful.
Did
That
you like the way he
resonated
was
with me.
slashing through?
Yeah, it was gorgeous.
Was that an NFL Films thing? NFL
Yes.
Films does it incredible compared to like what the NBA puts together, the NHL, MLB. NFL Films is awesome.
Although I like the dated ones, especially
And the
like
music.
especially someone like me. I went to school in like the early '90s, mid '90s. So when it was rainy, the PE teacher puts the best tackles. But it'll be like the dated ones from like the early '80s guys and like the '70s, and you'd have the guys like the what's his name? Corolla references him all the time, but he's like, he was like a famous linebacker, and he's like, the trick is when you go upside I go upside the head of my opponent and I slap him, whether it's a man or a woman, and like it's
Really?
like it was really bad, like the language
Damn.
they use.
Have you ever seen like Nick at Night and you watch Sanford
Really
and Son
dated.
and what Archie Bunker? Jesus
What
Christ.
impressed you the most about OJ? Was it the way he ran away or the way he cut?
The way he was running, cutting through, kind of reading.
Just like knifing through and stuff?
It was the other bodies, because the other bodies to me, and I'm not a football guy, so I'm going on a weird analogy, but it was like a flowing stream, and he just was like a surfer. You're just reading where the waves are, where it's breaking, where the waves are breaking, and he was able to read that. Except it was human gladiators in the field. Like again, I may say I think the other week I was in criticisms toward like. Not criticism toward football, but our perception of it, how it translates to MMA. But as a sport, of course, it's beautiful, and of course, there's things that I can appreciate about it for sure. And that's definitely like one that just sticks. And this was after I'm well aware of who OJ is, so I already have that version burned in my head. Right, I watched the trials live in the '90s, but going back to watch something like that, taking that identity out of it, who he was, like that's beautiful.
Did I mention on this show that John Orlando used to live in OJ's house?
Whoa,
Yeah.
which one? The one?
Yeah. He lived in it like years before OJ lived in it. So Tony Orlando, his dad, and OJ Simpson, they were friends. And OJ wanted to live on that block, and Tony said, "Well, there's one available over here." OJ moved into like kind of across the street to another house, and then when Tony wound up, he wanted. I think they were renting the house or something like that. And when they actually wanted to finally purchase it, by then OJ had moved in because they had moved into another house.
I thought you had told this story,
Yeah.
but it wasn't. And Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I was remembering was when Richard Hunter was here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Richard just randomly throws shit out that you just would never believe he did.
Yes.
One time he said, didn't he say something like, did I ever tell you guys about the night I hung out with OJ, like a whole night or something like that? And it was
Sounds familiar from Richard.
that was the story, but I don't think you have told the story of
Yeah. So what? John Orlando.
John Orlando, yeah.
Yeah. So John Orlando, him and they used to live in that house, the one that the Bronco came back to.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Only he lived in it years before that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Before. See, I was going to say.
He was real good friends with OJ's oldest son, who I think is a chef now in Atlanta. But
that connection aside, I was going to say John Orlando seems like he was a step away from being the guy who he caught Nicole with. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, boy.
And then I'm like, why do I picture John Orlando with that? And then I thought it was going to be a story that Go said because I told him a story about John Orlando that I don't think I told you. And it involves the guy who sold me my car actually knows. John
yeah,
Orlando.
you kind of did, I think. Yeah,
There was
that's right. All right.
We'll leave that alone, but.
All right, let's take a quick break here. Listening to MMA. Well, I guess just to put a cap on it, though, Tyron get healthy, but nobody feels like his spot is
He'll be back.
He's not losing any traction, right?
I
And
don't think so.
primarily because Usman and Colby have yet to fight, and they've yet to announce a date, and I just don't see him fighting before September. So Tyron has plenty of time to just heal the hand, still fight Lawler or fight someone else, and then be on that same timeline.
I think past politics aside, if you have a belt that the UFC schedule makes, if you're a former champion, you're their friend. So I don't think his standing drops too low. If you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. All right, when we come back, we'll talk about Sage Northcutt, former UFC fighter, now fighting at ONE Championship. He debuted at ONE Championship, and we'll tell you what happened. When we come back, it's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 156.
share.
Cosmo Alessandre throws the one-hitter quitter, Michael Savello.
Put excellence and excitement in your Vitamix. Add ice, and you get MMA Junkie Radio.
Be the smartest fan in the room and the most informed player in your league with Fantasy Sports Radio. From the PGA Championship to the Preakness Stakes, fantasy baseball, and the NBA playoffs and more. Your news, projections, and picks to help you benefit from your favorite sports on Sirius 210, XM87, and streaming on your phone and at home on SiriusXM connected devices and speakers. Speaking of the PGA Championship, Tiger Woods did not qualify for the weekend play.
Oh.
He had such a bad round 2 that he's out. And everybody thought, oh, my God, the comeback. Jack Nicklaus. You know, is he fearing that Tiger may make a run at the most majors ever? I think Tiger, don't quote me, has 14, and Nicklaus has 18. And the Tiger, who just won the Masters, you know, he seems to kind of go on streaks. So it would have been nice to see him at least compete here, but he didn't even make it to the weekend play. Anyway, there you have it. Sirius 210, XM87, Fantasy Sports Radio. We met a guy from Fantasy Sports Radio yesterday when we went and did a SiriusXM workshop. Cool guy. All right. Let's talk a little bit about Sage Northcutt. That little audio clip obviously spoiled what I was about to tell you all. But Sage was defeated in one championship. Earlier today, Cosmo Alexander, former Lion Fight Muay Thai fighter, former MMA fighter. He did some rounds over at Bellator. He was part of the Black Zillion team, and I don't know if he's still with them and if he still trains in South Florida with Henry Hooft. Now they're Combat Cub, Hard Knocks. But I remembered that name, and I just remember knowing, well, that's someone you want to take to the ground. No, look, the fight only took 26 seconds. So it could be that was Sage's plan. But if you watch the fight, which is available on Twitter, pretty much the whole thing, all 26 seconds, there were times where he wasn't acting like someone that was fighting somebody that had that one-hitter quitter type power. His hands were kind of down. He was moving, very, very like he was confused in what he wanted to do. Am I supposed to go to the right, go to the left? He just looked like he was confused more than anything. And then, boom, Cosmo Alexander just put one on him, and he was out. He was out cold. So there you have it. Now, the bigger story is he's a free agent. He's a high-profile free agent. Not the highest profile of all time, but still, he was somebody that people typed up stories about it. You know, it was big news when it happened. What do you think about all this, guys?
Well, first of all, it's just not – people don't know Cosmo Alexander, but that's actually a decent opponent.
Oh, yeah.
It's a
Especially
great
if
opponent.
you're introducing somebody that – I don't know that one championship looks at things the way we do here in America, where you get a big agent, big free
Let's
free
protect
agent.
him.
Yeah, and you feel like whoever they get matched up with first is more of a protection fight. I
Like
don't know
Crow
if they
Cup
really
when he fought
do
Eddie
that.
Sanchez. That was a
Yeah,
protection,
it's a
right?
setup, right?
Right.
You want him to look great, and then you match him up
And
against
then he was
someone else
supposed
and
to
make
get
a lot of
Randy.
money, right?
Right.
I don't know if they look at it that way at one championship because that is a tough matchup. But Sage Northcutt, like, I still don't know what we got with him. I'm trying to figure out.
Well, he was 6-2. He wasn't really a bad
But
UFC
were they
fighter.
like beasts that he was facing?
No, but still.
right?
But when Dana White said he's not UFC ready, that was on his exit, and they asked him about it, and I'm like, he's 6-2. He was more than UFC ready. He was in the UFC, and he went 6-2.
He's
Now,
not ready
you
for
didn't-
what they wanted him to
You
be.
didn't want to sign him. He was probably asking for more money than you wanted, but to say that he wasn't ready, I wouldn't agree with that.
That's
but
their fault, though. They gave him a lot of money to start. That was
True.
their bad. Who is he in regards to other sports? Is it kind of like, I don't want to say a Ryan Leaf, but somebody that came over with a big name and just kind of had good games here and there, but not really
A free agent big name?
Well, who is he? RG3? No, the RG3.
Well, these
went
are
to
guys
the
that were
playoffs, right?
drafted, though. Your guys were drafted.
I don't follow much sports to you guys, but I got to imagine it's going to be hard to get a comparison because the vetting process for all the sports is much higher than MMA, right? I mean, I'm not trying to crap on the point. If you can think of someone throwing it out there, I'm just saying that.
I'm
I'm
thinking,
curious,
like, Remember Heath Schuler?
I got one,
He had a
guys.
couple good games in the season, but then he had mostly
Is he the Christian
bad
Leitner?
games.
Is he Christian Leitner of the?
But I don't understand because you keep going back to drafted guys.
Yeah, somebody that came
Picture a
in
free agent.
into just picture somebody that came into MMA.
Yeah.
Okay, when you finally heard his name, right, and he showed up at the UFC, and you thought this is supposed to be the next big thing, but he didn't do that bad, but he flopped in regards to what the standards that we had him at.
All right. I was thinking a little bit of, and this is old. This is almost 20 years. Actually, I may hit with Dan Tom because that's when he was more of a fan of basketball. Do you remember when the Lakers had Shaq and Kobe? And one year we brought J.R. Ryder, one year we brought Glenn Rice, and one year we brought Mitch Richmond. And those guys were all studs at former teams. But on our team, they just didn't click. And we can't even say that they really – I mean, they contributed a little, but not much to the 3 titles that we won in a row. So, again, they came over with a lot of fanfare, and I remember thinking, yes, when we signed that player, thinking he would add to the team. And then there were times where not only would they not start, they wouldn't even play.
Yeah, no, definitely. And just this talk alone makes me wonder if we'll – I don't want to start taking the conversation in that direction, but since we are talking about one and the UFC – if we do see more trade talk, because sometimes trades can be lively. I know that was a big point of contention with some draft talk for you sports fans, and I saw a lot of people talking about that. How important is that as far as expectations versus bust? I know my man. Of course, I got to mention Scottie Pippen. He was originally traded to the Seattle SuperSonics, and they traded him for Sean Kemp. Kemp had more of a ceiling, face value. It was a super athlete. But in the long run, who was the better player? Who was the better buy? And they did that about 2 weeks after the draft, or however they disseminate that. But back onto the stage, Northcutt though, I think Cosmo Alexander. I mean, he was. I don't really we don't really make picks for these for our staff picks, so I wasn't thinking of it from a picks wise. But that ending, it didn't shock me. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be Mr. I told you so. Like, Sage definitely had a path. He always had a strong blast double even from his amateur days, and that's what I expected him to do with a guy with a pro striking experience like Cosmo Alexander, who's going to have the advantage over him no matter what there. And he didn't get that off, and you guys, you were explaining it pretty well. He almost like he didn't seem which way to go, and that's more kind of who Sage was. And like you guys said, he is UFC level, but more toward the bottom rung. I mean, and to me, it's not a surprise. And I'm not one of those guys that's trying to kick Sage or anybody when they're down. But if you guys remember when we used to do those picks, I think this was before I was officially part of the team, but I would participate in the Junkie radio picks. I think it was only me and one other people out of 100 or whoever used to participate in those pick pools, but no one picked Barberina. And me, I'm a big Barberina guy. I picked him against Worley, and I picked him against Sage at ridiculous odds. And just because Sage wasn't proven. I come from that traditional point fighting background. I love it. I respect it more than most guys. I give it more credit more than most guys, but it's not the same. And you have to have a lot of experience, like the hundreds and hundreds of fights, like the Michael Pages or the Stephen Thompsons, to really translate it in. And Sage took a while to find himself, and to you guys' point, he didn't just get rushed with the pay and his advancement. If you guys remember, I believe it was UFC 192, a Texas card. That was one of the latest bouts, him versus Francisco Trinaldo. Not Francisco somebody. His first fight in the UFC, they literally booked that within 2 or 3 weeks. Like, they literally rushed this guy to market like he was going to expire or something when he was 19 freaking years old or 20 years old.
That was going to be my next question. Did the UFC break him?
No.
In other words, if he would have kept going through the ranks and built himself little by little, would he have gotten better? Is some of this psychological? Because you look at him, you never look at him and go, "Oh, that guy's lazy. He doesn't put in any work." Seems like he trains, puts in some work.
I don't think they broke him. I just think a better striker caught him.
Yeah.
Two things here. Josh Thompson, former Strikeforce lightweight champ. He wrote 2 of the 3. This is on Twitter at The Real Punk. 2 of the 3 top fighter signings from the UFC lost in one championship. I know better than most that it's a fight and anything can happen, but this is also proof that not every top fighter is in the UFC, and that's very, very true. Mm-hmm. We've always said that the UFC houses most of the best fighters, but not all of the best fighters. So there are good fighters in other leagues that can beat UFC level fighters. Now, couldn't they go in there and become champion? That's a whole other story. But I also tried writing a daily debate for today, and it wasn't accepted. But here are some points that I made that I wanted to make to you guys. What stands out the most as a talking point as the result of Northcutt's loss? Let me just ask you that question. What stands out
most about his loss?
Yeah.
The fact that it was so quick.
Okay, how about you?
I would just say continued criticism, that narrative. Oh, he's not as good as we thought. See, which develops in the conjecture that we're talking about now.
Well, here's something that I was thinking about. Going forward, might free agency suffer? Can a guy go to the UFC and goes, hey, I'm getting offered somewhere else? You know what I mean? And can the UFC go ahead? Like, you may not feel compelled to get that fighter or to keep that fighter because more are in the pipeline. The other organizations could a Bellator or could a one championship not offer as much because there have been previous, I don't want to say flops because this is only their first fight.
Oh, on that end.
Yeah, they could still go 3-1. They could win, if it's a 4-fight contract, Alvarez and Northcutt could win the next 3 and now you wouldn't call them a flop. But could they be like, wait a minute, we better be a little bit more hesitant, maybe home grow your athletes rather than break the bank for some of these athletes because as you've seen, there has been many cases. Remember Roger Huerta a long time ago?
Yeah.
Remember Eddie Alvarez, his debut, he lost to the Cowboy. He also went on to be a world champ. And then these two just lost over one championship, but there's been a lot of fighters. Who's the former Bellator champ that beat Michael Chandler? Will Brooks. He went over to the UFC and had an awful run.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
I had this actual argument last night. And my counter to this was also you have to don't just remember about those guys that went that way. Think about the guys that went the other way. Justin Gaethje, Marlon Moraes, Eddie Alvarez won a title at the UFC.
Yep.
So a lot of them from the other organizations have also come in and had success.
Right. But I could see an organization going, don't make that number too high because
maybe
we're not writing checks like we used to. You know what I mean? We got Tim Nasty. That's the guy that defeated Eddie Alvarez. We got Cosmo Alexander. We might necessarily be interested. Go ahead.
Well, I could see as far as like the trade go, I would see this encouraging trade more than anything, guys, because you think about that. You have to have the right kind of fighter, the kind of trade, and that is true, and that ultimately makes it a minority type of deal, no matter how you cut it. But people brought this name up with a BJ Penn. Do you trade him to a Bellator or a ONE FC? To say what you will, I don't want to see BJ Penn fight anymore for what it's worth. I've been over it for 2013. I've been consistent on that stance. But I'm just saying, if you want to continue to fight, do you trade off these names that the UFC built? Because something you brought up the other day, George, how much are they paying these guys, right? Mm-hmm. And now we're talking about, UFC not so eager to bend the knee to Conor McGregor or put out these paydays. Another thing you were just kind of bringing out as far as dishing out money for these guys with the ESPN deal. And if that's true, if their negotiating power has increased, then they don't maybe necessarily need these names. And again, UFC, kind of something you guys have pointed out, say what you will, they know when to cut loose. You guys have always said that as far for the most part, right? And that was something that was made our eyes on the Rory to Bellator trade, because that was kind of the closest where, well, was he done? I don't know.
Musasi?
Right. So think of it this way. They want to expand to Asia and still go to other places, and they still have a schedule to fill, right? And places like ONE, say what you will about their boasting of numbers, it's true. They do have a lot of eyes and territory there. So who knows if they don't trade the Tim Nasties, the Edward Fowlongs, the Cosmo Alexanders for the BJ Penns, because they're not going to get
Lee beating Shinya Aoki.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you trade those bigger names that the UFC built. They know they're not going to get that many fights out of these guys anyways. You give it to an organization like ONE. You take their guys. So who knows? Just playing devil's advocate there.
Well, the other points I was just going to quickly say, because I know we got to go to break. It's the other promotions aren't as far behind as is generally believed, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we think UFC houses the most athletes. Well, the reason we do that is because UFC athletes primarily are always fighting another top-level fighter. So when you go 7-1, there's respect for that. You know what I mean? Somebody over at ONE or Bellator could also go on a run, but could they go 7-1 in the UFC? That's different than going 7-1 in ONE or 7-1 in Bellator. No disrespect, but that's the truth. Barring maybe the featherweight and the welterweight division, that's pretty tough over at Bellator. But still, you don't have to go necessarily 7-1 in a promotion. You can just go 2-1 and become a world champion like Eddie Alvarez. One last thing here. A rush to conclusion off one fight would be silly, and then the reason is because Eddie Alvarez lost his first fight, but then he came back and became a world champion. So we can't call them flops yet. We can't say Northcutt, he's a flop. Alvarez at ONE, he's a flop, because
those are tough matchups.
Alvarez
as well.
wound up turning it around. Marlon Moraes, he lost his first fight. He wasn't a flop. Now he's fighting for a world title. Yep. So you just got to let it play out, except MMA is an unforgiving sport, and we don't do that. We just rush the judgment off one fight.
True.
And critique and just fire off. It's
yes,
the Wild
sir.
West. All right.
That was your gun? Pew, pew, pew.
It wasn't quite Randy level.
At least
Better?
bang bang. Pew pew pew. Is that a Western?
I
Randy, what is
think
he doing here?
Danny Elkers was stuck in my head.
Yeah.
He used to do that with
Yeah, I think so.
every time somebody's
Pew,
name got
pew,
brought
Randy,
up.
Pew pew.
Yeah. All right. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, channel 156. We will be back in just a couple minutes, and we're going to do our daily debate.
Duck season, rabbit season, whether it's food, less filling, tastes great, less filling, tastes great, gambling, always bet on black.
I like red.
Black, red, black dummy, or even social media. Instagram,
Snapchat.
The same applies to the biggest stories in MMA. Time for MMA Junkie Radio's Daily Debate.
Today's daily debate question for the MMA Junkie Radio team. What do you think is Sage Northcutt's ceiling in one championship after losing his debut in 29 seconds? Your three choices are A, he's still going to be an eventual champion. B, he's going to be a middle-of-the-pack guy. C, the struggle is real. Go ahead, Dan.
I feel like criticism has always kind of been unfair on Sage. He was kind of rushed to the dance, if you will. But, as somebody who actually, was picking guys like Brian Barberee to beat him and questioning the odds, I feel like I've had a pretty good idea on where Sage stands. So this actually didn't surprise me, the recent result. So I'm going to just say the struggle is real, but don't give up on Sage. He's a young kid, man. He's going to continue to get better.
Okay. How about you guys?
Middle of the pack. Want to know why?
Yeah.
Good, because I'm about to tell you. Here's what the deal is. He wasn't that bad in UFC if you look at his record. If you look at his level of opponents, it was up and down, hit or miss. to be a champion, you have to put together what are called streaks, and he was not very good at that. So I find him to just be stuck in that middle of the pack range because of that.
Well, he's 23 years old, so the ceiling is still there for him to grow.
Right.
Very athletic, very committed. I like the fact that he's tried stuff. He's gone to TriStar. He's gone to Team Alpha Male.
Right.
So he's not afraid to leave the comforts of home. Seems like college is on the back burner. He definitely has the means to afford good training partners and good coaches. But I remember when I saw him lose. When he's lost, he's just looked so average when he loses. You know what I mean? That's the thing. It's not like he loses these wars or anything like that. And so to me, it tells me, wow, he still got to work on fill in the blank. Wow, yeah, he needs to shore up, fill in the blank. That's why the state champion is tough. And usually when I see a guy that's 11-3,
right,
went 6-2 in the UFC, and he's over at one championship, an organization that is just not as deep as the UFC, I would have normally said eventual champion, but I'm also going to go with middle of the pack because I just need to see him, not have these losses that are just disappointing to me. I think he could do a lot better. But, again, focus on the fact that he's 23, so he still has time. He just needs to obviously take time because this one was a knockout loss. The other ones were submission losses to Barberina and to Mickey Gall. So I'm going to go with middle of the pack. Do you guys at all give him a possibility of eventual champion?
I mean, I kind of lay that caveat. I mean, I'm not throwing dirt on the grave by any means. Again, I feel like his criticism's always been unfair, but I don't believe he's I've always believed he's been toward that. And bottom rung on the UFC is a really deceptive thing. It's not that bad. It's very few people get there in life. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just believe that's where he's at. I believe he can get better, but I just believe that's where he's at right now.
Yeah. All right, there's today's Daily Debate brought to you by the MMA Junkie radio team. Let me just tell you the percentages of the votes and how they went. The struggle is real, 47%. Middle of the pack, 44%. Eventual champion, 9%.
Ooh.
All right. We are going to trudge along here. We got our top of the hour break. That's not going to take too long, 60 seconds. Don't touch that dial. Don't go anywhere because when we come back, we'll be talking to former UFC light heavyweight champion Rashad Evans.
And Android carry a feature to make their show more enjoyable. It's called the mute button. Here are those two numbnuts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
You can follow our next guest, Rashad Evans, on Twitter at Sugar Rashad Evans. He is in Rochester. He is part of the whole announcing team there that they have for ESPN's coverage of UFC Fight Night 152. And he's joining us now on the hotline. What's up, Rashad? How you doing? Welcome back to MMA Junkie Radio.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Not much, my man. How about you?
I'm blessed. Just enjoying Rochester.
Yeah.
Pretty
close to home.
New York.
Pretty close to home for you, right?
Yeah, close to home. Pretty close, man. I was actually home earlier this week. Came out a few days early to spend some time with the family, so not too far.
Was that really a surprise to Mom, or did she kind of know you were coming?
No, I really didn't surprise her. She didn't know. We didn't do it for the gram. She didn't know I was coming. I always do that just in case I don't come. Just in case I don't come, you know?
Yeah.
Because if I don't come, she's like, Rashad, now you said you was coming now. Now, don't be coming. You coming. Don't be coming. So I just always surprised.
What has she told you about your impression of her, by the way? Is she down with it? Like, you're spot on, son, or did she tell you to stop doing that?
She laughs. She laughs about it. I mean, I've been doing it for so long.
Right.
I mean, I was doing it. Remember the time when she called in ESPN?
Mm-hmm.
You know, she called in ESPN, man, and I had no idea I was impersonating her, and then she's like, Rashad, I know you ain't making fun of me, and I was like, ooh, I'm surprised. You know?
Yep. All right. Well, Rochester, you're in town, and you're part of ESPN. Congrats, obviously, on going over from Fox to ESPN and doing your thing there. Kevin Lee versus Rafael dos Anjos. Man, what an awesome main event, right? Two guys that are in athletic prime, and honestly, both of them can do everything well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. RDA, he's proven, champion, and his ability and what he can do with his feet, his stand up, and when he's at his best is when he's working that ground game, when he's working his takedowns, and I think that's what he needs to get back to if he's going to be able to control any of the pace with Kevin Lee, who at the end of the day, if he gets him down on the ground, he's going to give him fits enough. When he gets back up on his feet, he's going to be changed as a striker. And it may be a striker that Kevin Lee has a better chance of standing with.
Changed because he'll be damaged and more drained of energy, or is there something else?
Yeah. Change because, when you're down like that with a guy who takes that much energy out of you and who can do that much damage to you, like Kevin Lee, because when he does his ground and pound, he doesn't just, float on top. He grinds his guy into the mat, into the canvas, and that grinding action, that's very hard because the whole time he's grinding you, you're trying to scoot back and sit up, and you're burning your arms out the whole time, and you're burning it out, and then you're not rewarded for your efforts because then he pins you up, and then he drops elbows on you, so then it becomes a matter of frustration as well, too.
I see.
So it's a nasty business being on top of somebody who has that kind of top pressure.
All right. I think Goes has some main event questions, too. Goes, go ahead.
Rashad, I wanted to ask you about Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee is a guy who's going up in weight, another weight class, and you've done this before where you fought at 205, you fought at 185. That first fight, fighting at a different weight class, does it feel different at all at the beginning of the fight? Do you just feel like you're maybe running in a different car with a different engine? Does it take a while to get used to it?
Yeah, it does. It does feel a little bit different. It depends on what that jump was. You might the speed. Yeah, the speed is the first thing you notice, and then then the power. But the speed is the first thing you notice. You're like, okay, he's moving kind of fast, and then you judge yourself moving fast against him. Like, okay, I got the speed advantage, or maybe not. But that's the first thing I would notice when I drop down.
Rashad, let's talk a little bit about the co-main event, the new co-main event. It's now Ian Heinisch versus Antonio Carlos Jr. A lot of people know who Antonio Carlos Jr. is, but Ian Heinisch at a quiet 12-1, that dude's a tough guy, man. He's not that big of an underdog going into this one.
No, and he shouldn't be because he's tough all over. Not only is he good with his stand-up, he has unpredictable timing, which makes his stand-up even more dangerous. And he has power to boot with that. And when somebody has that awkward style, great movement, and power to boot, and the willingness to take the fight anywhere, he's not afraid to go on the ground with guys who outmatch him in jiu-jitsu. He's not afraid of that. And the fact that he's not afraid of that surprises a lot of guys who are jiu-jitsu experts. So I think that's what makes him dangerous, and I think that's why the betting odds are right. Mm-hmm. He should definitely he's definitely one to watch in this matchup.
Yeah. The odds, by the way, folks, if you want to play these fights, Antonio Carlos Jr., also known as Shoeface, is about -170, -190 in that range. Ian Heinisch comes back at about +140, 160. As far as Kevin Lee and Rafael dos Anjos, it's almost a virtual pick 'em. All right, Dan Tom, our fight analyst. Dan, what do you have for Sugar Rashad Evans?
Hey, first of all, Rashad, I just got to say I'm with my host here, George. I love the mom impressions as well. Now, don't get me wrong, I got love for Michelle Watterson. In fact, I'm an Asian American, so maybe I identify with her impressions more. But you might have to tell Michelle to get off your lawn, because to me, you're still the champ in more ways than one, Rashad.
My man, thank you. I appreciate you.
No worries. Love those impressions. And one more compliment, only because it's actually relevant to the question I'm going to ask. And two, when we have vets or royalty vets, if you will, it's always nice to wax. And one of my favorite things about your career, and obviously you have all the accolades which you deserve credit for, but one thing I don't really hear people give you credit for, I put you right up there with GSP as far as the evolution of our sport, in particular, Rashad, when it came to transitioning from striking, head movement, and into shots. I mean, it was beautiful. I used to love when they would cue up the slow-mo whenever you'd roll under a punch and change that right into a shot. And now, we're seeing more people do it and more people find that in-between space. But let me ask you, being in that position where both being innovated or being surrounded by innovators, now as an analyst, Rashad, do you see that in guys? And it's kind of ladies and gentlemen, I should say, and it's a bit of a broad question, but do you ever look for people that are changing the game? And if so, is there anybody that comes to mind that really, captures your eye from a technical level that you watch these days?
Yeah, I definitely see people who are changing the game. I see that the guys with great imagination who move different and who just have a different way of fighting. Stylebender is one of those guys. He's just got a fresh, just different kind of way of moving and fighting. Also another one is the Beat. The Beat is a guy who is extremely creative in there. Tony Ferguson is another one. Some of these guys. And also, you can never forget the Dominic Cruz. Dominic Cruz was, his footwork started a revolution of footwork. It really brought footwork to the next level in UFC. You know what I'm saying? So, I feel like some aspects of my game is definitely in the realm of that as well too. When I see some of the fighters, and I'm just like, man, the way they do that transition, the way they move, yeah, I'm definitely feeling like They watched a few of my moves back in the day.
Hey, Rashad, one last thing on that, I guess. And, obviously you're studied up here in the main event. We just heard you talk about that. But a lot of these guys in the main event, they're in a similar neighborhood right now. You just mentioned some of them, whether it's guys like Tony Ferguson, who I agree is changing the game. He's fighting a guy you're familiar with, you've trained with, in Donald Cerrone. Obviously, Kevin Lee and Dos Anjos, I'm sure they're kind of a part of the tape study there. But can we get a quick breakdown of maybe a Ferguson Cerrone from you, Rashad, as far as do you see that fight going in a particular way or anything? Because that's a great fight that's got a lot of people excited.
Yeah, that is a great fight. First with Tony Ferguson, you got Tony Ferguson coming back and he's going to be, first of all, battling himself, just trying to harness his emotion and trying to harness just all the doubt that he may feel that people had on him. So that's going to be the first obstacle he's going to have to overcome. But like once he gets past that, he's been working a long time and had a lot of time off to think about what he's going to do. So I know that he's going to come with some fresh new tricks. And with that said, Cowboy has to not allow him to feel comfortable enough to set up. So he's going to have to put a lot of pressure on, and he's going to have to make sure that he's tight on that body, because Tony Ferguson is definitely going to be hunting for that body shot.
All right, Ghost, finish up.
Rashad, we've asked you this question before when you were fighting, and I'm sure many other people have asked you this. It's a question that you get usually in the middle of your career, and people go, hey, man, is this your prime? Are you in your prime? I'm going to ask you that same question, except I'm not talking about fighting. I'm talking about broadcasting. Are you comfortable enough now where you say, hey, this is my prime right here, or are you still kind of learning the ropes, perfecting everything?
I think I'm still learning the ropes and perfecting everything. I think that, once I have more consistency, I think I'll be entering in that realm where I'm hitting my stride. But I think my biggest holdback on my broadcasting career is just not being consistent enough, just having, too many irons in the fire and maybe not focusing on it enough as I should.
And is that by choice? Like, do you tell the UFC, I'm not available on this day, I'm not available on that day? Or do they just not call as often as you'd like?
No, they'll let you work, whenever you if you keep putting your hand up, that's the thing about it. But sometimes I have so many things going on that when you tie your dates up too many weekends in a row, it makes it hard to do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So and if you raise your hand too many times, you can sign up too many days and really not realize it because it's so far in the future because we book a month in advance, and then you got something going on, but then you're pretty much locked into a schedule you can't get out of. So that's what I didn't want right now, especially with where I'm at with my transition in life. I want to be able to make sure that I'm able to move enough to be able to take advantage of any opportunities that I have to.
I know it's been almost a year. You retired last June, if I'm not mistaken. So it's almost been a year. How long did it take you before you were like finally like, yup, like now I'm good? Where there weren't temptations of wow, why'd I do that for, or maybe contemplating, where you were really really at peace? How long did that take?
It took a while, to be honest. I'll be lying if I say sometimes I don't still feel the sting of wanting to compete. But I'm definitely in a place where I can definitely say that I moved on from wanting to compete as a fighter. So that took a while to get to because I was so connected to it for so long. A big part of who I identify myself as being was part of that sport. And without having that in my life anymore, it was hard. I'm not gonna try to sit up here and act like I wasn't hurt about it, but it was a tough transition. But it's life, though. At some point, I knew one day I was gonna have to go through that transition.
Mm-hmm. Well, looking back, man, you had a lot of great skins on your wall: Liddell, Bisping, Griffin, Rampage, Tito, absolutely. Phil Davis, Hendo, Chael. Jesus. You had a great career, and like Go says, you're doing great at the broadcasting. You hit a lot of check marks. You can talk to anybody because you've been at the top as the world champion. You've been at the top as an Ultimate Fighter champion, so you've been in that house. You've had a rivalry. You've had to switch camps. You've had to switch management. I mean, seriously, you've coached the Ultimate Fighter. So trust me, man, when you're talking, people are listening. Break a leg out there. Do a great job like you always do. And we look forward to, your work, as always, on ESPN.
Man, so much love, guys. I appreciate you so much, and let's do this more often.
Sounds good. All right, Rashad, take care. Stay away from that McDonald's in Niagara Falls.
No fight for me.
All right, we'll see you later. All right, that's Rashad Evans. Man, you look back, you did a lot.
Yeah.
You really did a lot.
Season 2.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, channel 156. Oh, again, Rashad on Twitter, at Sugar Rashad Evans. It really helps out if you can hit him up on Twitter and say, hey, man, I caught your spot on at MMA Junkie Radio with at MMA Junkie George, at The Goes, and at Dan Tom MMA. All right, folks, we will be right back, and we'll talk a little bit more about Kevin Lee and RDA. My man Dan Tom watched a lot of footage, so we'll break this fight down a little bit more than we did on Monday.
The boys are just getting
Dirty
warmed
Diana.
up. Now the real show begins. Take it away, boys.
Need the chain-smoking Asian guy taking bets in the crowd while this song plays.
After the playoff game in Milwaukee is over, tune in to NBA Radio's post-game show for a recap of all the action. Hear locker room reaction, expert analysis, and more on Sirius 207, XM86, and streaming on your phone and at home on Sirius XM connected devices and speakers. You want to name 2 more guys?
I'm going to leave my fingers up until I get recognition for doing the 8.
Yeah, that was impressive.
All right.
It was. And he did it quick, too. I asked Goes to name Michael Jackson songs, and
I'm not good at being put on the spot.
he named off 8 quickly. Although the last one, what was it, Moscow?
Stranger in Moscow?
I couldn't even call that wrong.
You've heard it. I know
have?
you can. Yeah. Nico, if you would be a gentleman, could you please play Michael Jackson's Stranger in Moscow?
Stranger in Moscow sounds like something you have to pay extra
Sounds
for.
like a movie. That sounds like a...
When you
like
hear
a
it, I
Gwyneth
know you'll
Paltrow
recognize
movie,
it.
Stranger in
I'm not
Moscow.
saying it's one of like his most popular ones, but it's just one that came to mind. Because she had already taken 3, and I think Dan had taken 3, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, did he? I didn't hear Dan's. No, Josh. That was
Josh. Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Sorry to trouble you, sir.
That was me, just for the record.
Oh,
but,
thanks,
whatever.
fool.
Keeping it sexy.
Hey, Josh. Are you guys really ringside tomorrow, or is that just Randy acting like you guys are more than what you really are? 'Cause I'm jealous.
I mean, how are you going to put me on the spot? I'm either going to be a liar or I'm throwing my host.
Well,
under
what
the bus
I
here.
want to know is, are you guys kind of like in the back room, and maybe one of you, there's 4 of you guys are all sharing one ticket, and you're just running back and forth taking the bracelet off, or are all 4 of you really going to be?
Oh, so now you want me to admit to committing borderline fraud when our friends at the PBC and WBC treat us with nothing but class. Perfect. No, all right, I'll say this.
Well,
we'll
if
be on the
anything,
floor.
we're putting over the fight right now, right? Where we're naming it and we're talking about it and tell people where they can catch it. That's good.
It is a great fight.
You're on the
we
floor?
will be on the floor.
Nice.
Being that the only people ringside are the commentators, the cut men, and the officials or whatever. We won't be ringside per se, but we will be on the floor. And if not, we'll just have Cooney complain until we get moved there.
Marcos Vega, shout out to him. He's their unofficial scorekeeper.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Would you ever want to do that?
And was
For boxing or MMA?
Anything.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
Mhm.
That's too much pressure for me. I know I'd fuck
Look,
it up eventually.
If I was constantly just being way off, because I would go back and then see what the real scores are and then critique. If I was awful, I'd be the first to go rip up the contract. I don't deserve this bullshit. But if I'm on, I'm on.
Oh, at least a timekeeper.
No,
I would never want to be the timekeeper. Because I know
that's
I would
easy,
mess up
isn't
the...
it? Nah, everything's so digital now.
No, man. Well... I forgot I'd hit it a little too early. I know somebody on Twitter would go,
Somebody did it the
"Have
other
you
day
noticed?"
on UFC. Somebody was about 3 seconds late.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was watching the clock because I think I had to take a whiz, so I was literally standing there doing the pee-pee dance, and then all of a sudden I'm looking and it said 10, 9, 8, 7, and the camera happened to show a guy that was looking around with the 2 boards, and then all of a sudden, boom, boom, we started hitting it, and then just to make sure I watched and I did my mental count. And sure enough, the horn went on, and it wasn't 10 seconds. It was that 6 or 7. So, like, did it matter? Probably not. What matters is when you end a round early, maybe by a minute. That's not good.
We have a friend that did that.
I've seen that at no, what are we talking about?
We have a friend that...
At Tough Enough, didn't we see somebody let a fight go 3 minutes? It should have only been 2.
I think so. We saw that once. We were the commentators. That was really
great.
tough. But there was another one where one of our friends did it a minute early, the clapper.
Clack, clack, clack.
And so they were getting ready to call the round, but everybody was like, what the hell? Only one minute had gone by.
Okay. All right. So, Dan, Tom, you had all week kind of like to really, really shore up your breakdown of Kevin Lee versus RDA. Is there anything you want to add to our prediction video that we filmed on Monday? Have you changed your mind? Are you still standing strong with your pick? Or
I haven't changed my mind, but I don't know if I was ever standing strong on my pick. That's the thing, man. I think it's very similar, guys, like I said, to the Patricio Fiore, to Michael Chandler. You know, I'm going to side with the American wrestler here, but, man, the Brazilian is livelier, speedier, and dangerous anytime this thing's on the feet. We're gonna see what Kevin Lee's conditionings look like. He said he did some conditioning work out there in California with that Sam Calvita cat. Let's see if that pays off, because I think he's gonna need to control. I'm picking him by decision, but man, it's kind of Dos Anjos or bust, and as far as betting wise goes, and I think the betting line would agree with that, because Dos Anjos was a dog. Now he's actually the slight favorite in what should be still a near pick'em.
Dos Anjos slight favorite?
Yeah, I last saw he's minus 115, whereas Lee's minus 105. You get a little cheaper price tag on Lee if you actually like Lee there.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know if I want to ask you this on the air.
Oh, no.
I'm going to ask it. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Yesterday, we found out that somebody listens to a lot of the breakdowns that we do.
Okay.
Correct? Kind of a high name.
Yeah.
That was today.
Was it today? Well, you were told us today, but didn't you find out yesterday?
No, I found it out today.
All right, whatever. Today we found out. But then the other day we also heard a fighter called you out on your picks, right? Or no, Das Americas, Eric Albarracin called you out on
the
your
whole
picks.
site, kind of, but yeah.
We've been called out before by fighters.
Yeah.
When you go to Extreme Couture, do you feel more pressure now, like say that you have to do that for a Kevin Lee fight, a guy that pops into Extreme Couture?
So I'm back in the gym.
Does it bug you?
It does, back in the gym, but I will say this, guys. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna homer each time. And when I do, I'm pretty good. I'm the guy, coming forth. I'm never the guy that says I have no biases. I always say I have biases, and I always have been them first and foremost.
But does it make you feel weird, though?
It makes me feel weird, but the funny thing is, in balance, I picked against Kevin Lee before, and it makes me feel more weird because I'm back in the gym. But the last time I was back in the gym, guys, was about when Kevin Lee was getting that title shot, and I could only do certain things like the bike and certain things, and the bike was always pointed to that cage. And, the time where I was working out was always when Flawless, rest in peace, was still alive. He was doing his privates with Kevin Lee, and there's like strategy for that fight. And I picked Tony Ferguson to beat him. You know what I'm saying? And I told Flawless that too, and he respected it. He knows that's the part of the job, and he didn't take it personal or anything, right? But it was one of those things where I felt like I didn't even want to finish my bike workout because regardless of who I'm picking, I just don't. And I know you guys have shared that too. You guys, you've shared the same thing, George. I know. You know what I'm talking about.
I would just look down or look in another direction, and
awkward, huh?
Huh?
Awkward.
Yeah, a little bit awkward.
I think it's our conscious, though. I mean, a lot of it is, which is good. I mean, I guess it's better to be wired that way.
Yeah,
if
somebody
anything,
calls me out on it, right away I'd go, really? Do you think that? I'm insulted.
Right, yes.
Because
you flip it on them?
Yeah, I'd flip it on them. Because I either just, if I saw too much, I wouldn't, talk about it, much less, I mean, I have to do my staff picks, but for the most part, yeah, I if somebody were to call me out on my staff pick, I don't care. If somebody were to say, hey, did you tell somebody that you saw someone's elbow being tended to or someone's knee being, shaken up in a practice? No, that I would be offended at.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Usually
Usually
I only bring up stuff that I know is safe to bring up, as far as that isn't against the unwritten rules of what you see in the gym you don't talk about or whatever. Because I've probably said at least 20 things here on the show, some with Ray there, some with Eric there, because I know that what I'm sharing is safe. Like the other day, Jay Haran lit someone up. All right? We were there, and
something's changed.
Thursday was Big Glove Day. Monday's wrestling. Tuesday's Little Gloves.
Yep.
Thursday's Big Gloves.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you would think Little Glove Day is a little bit more fun to watch because Little Gloves do more damage if you're there to kind of see a little bit of damage. But they hold back, all right? And they always got their shin pads, and they're honestly really there to train. Now, sometimes two guys go off a little bit, and sometimes people will stand back and watch, but it's more competition than anything, rather than you feel like you're on the brink of a street fight. But in this case, it was a new fighter. I can't even tell you. I'm not going to say the name because I really don't know who it was. But the fighter, so it was Thursday. Oh, and on Thursdays, because they have the bigger gloves, they can hit harder.
Yeah.
So it's actually kind of what winds up being a little bit more fun. So all of a sudden, this had started rather early, and then all of a sudden you just see two guys kind of all over the training mat. And we were like, whoa, what's going on? And the dude that had the small gloves was punching like if he had big gloves, and the big gloves guy let the other guy have it. The guy with the little gloves guy seems a little bit confused, like, what the hell, what's going on? And then Jay Haran, who comes back quite often, he's still kind of like one of the sergeant of arms, an enforcer. And so he very sternly says, hey, come here, I want to talk to you, you know. I think he noticed right away the guy just made a mistake. He didn't realize what the day was. Now, and I say that off my reaction, all right, because he really looked like, oh, you know, I didn't honestly see that. Now, if you're listening to the show, you're probably going, what kind of a fool wouldn't realize that the other 40, which I haven't said there was 40, but you know these practices are 40 deep, they all had big gloves on. You know what I mean? This was the only guy that didn't have them. So one would think, like, what was that guy thinking? But he really looked so confused and a little bit apologetic that it really looked like that was something that just he slipped up on. The problem was, as he was walking away and kind of like apologizing, and he was a little shook up because honestly he had just gotten lit up, Jay told him, hey, I want to talk to you, you know? And I think he just wanted to say, where are your gloves at, or what are you doing? And the guy kind of like brushed him off, and then Jay goes, hey, and I don't want to yell as loud as he did because otherwise I'll blow out the speakers, but he goes, hey, come here, I want to talk to you. He did it so bad that I almost went to the middle because I thought he was kind of looking in our direction. I almost went over there and said, yes, sir, what would you like to know, you know? He was mad, but more mad at the guy for not coming over. And then he just talked to him kind of like as a senior member, like, this is big glove day. Where are your big gloves, you know? And then Eric made sure he had his big gloves, and I'm not sure because what happened after that because I had to get going, but that's just a story of a mishap. Yeah. I'm not naming names or anything like that or whatever, but it was just kind of cool to see a senior member, you know, stick up and try and sort things out and figure it out.
I didn't mean to derail everything, but the point I was going to make was, do you think they feel the way we would feel if we found out Kevin Lee voted for Sherdog or MMA Fighting at the World MMA Awards? Would you take it similar to the way they might take it if they go, what, you picked against me?
It would suck, but I wouldn't hold it against anybody.
Yeah, but wouldn't you give him Frank Mir face?
Yeah.
I think there are layers if, like, they picked I think it probably would still hurt if they picked Junkie over another, or another over Junkie, but then I think it would hurt more if they picked another radio show over your radio show, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Whereas me, if they picked another analyst over me, I'm kind of wired the way of like, yeah, that guy's better than me. I suck. Like, I've got that self-deprecatingness where I would just be like, yeah, I agree with that.
I was just curious.
I actually have said
how
that.
You would feel walking.
I've actually said that to a fighter, and I've said, I don't get mad when you do that show. You know, I'm just picking this fight. I go, did you not realize that I picked you in the last 7? I go, it's just that in this particular one, bro, the matchups get tougher, you know, and
but look at the position you're in.
It wasn't too many of them, honestly, of those situations.
Macy's doesn't get mad when you go to Target.
Good point. All right, we got to go to break. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 156. When we come back, we'll be talking to Ricardo Lamas, one of the top featherweights in the world, who's got a fight coming up at UFC 138.
Are covered with participation awards. They have boxes of gold stars that they purchase themselves. They are the legends and demand your respect. Here are George and Goes.
All right, our next guest, Ricardo Lamas, one of our favorites. He's a foodie like us.
Hell yeah, he is.
Yeah, and he's got a big fight coming up in his hometown of Chicago, Illinois, UFC 238 on June 8th versus Calvin Kattar. He joins us now on the hotline. Little does he know, we got silly questions headed his way. What's up, Ricardo? How are you?
What's going on, guys?
I want to test your Michael Jackson knowledge. You ready?
I guess so.
Name 5
Michael
songs
where did
off
this
the
come
top of
from?
your head. Can you name 5 songs off the top of your head?
Okay. Obviously, Thriller, Bad, Beat It, The Way You Make Me Feel, and Black or White.
That's pretty good.
Boom.
Pretty good.
Okay. Can you name 2 other male Jacksons, part of the Jackson 5, other than Michael?
Tito and I don't know.
That was pretty good.
That was good.
I'll give you that just because you did a nice Michael Jackson.
His impression was
Okay.
spot on.
That was
Yeah.
good.
And what happened to that silliness, Ricardo Lamas? Remember when you were silly and you were busting Conor McGregor's balls? I thought we would see more of that, and I guess we really didn't see too much more of that. You kind of became serious, started having kids and opening gyms.
Yeah, man, I had to. No, the silliness is still there. I think a lot of people that know me or follow me on social media kind of see it a lot. And we'll see what we can do in the future with some more videos and stuff.
Did you ever run into McGregor after that, or have any more, run-ins with him? Because you really, really did get under his skin. I remember him saying, "That stupid, stupid video." He was kind of upset.
Yeah, that he didn't care about, right?
Yeah.
I ran into him the weekend I sent it out on that I put the video out.
Right.
So I was out in Boston for his fight against Dennis Seaver because I was announcing my fight with Chad Mendez there. And I was on the elevator with my now wife. You guys know Baboon.
Uh-huh.
He was out there with me, and the elevator was like pretty much half full. There was like a bunch of people in there. I was on my phone, and I was approving flights that were being sent to me from the UFC, so I was like dug in an email, and I have ADD, so when I'm like doing one thing, I can't do anything else.
Right.
So the elevator stops, some more people get on. I'm looking down at my phone, so I don't know who's there. It goes up about a floor, and like everybody's dead silent in the elevator. I remember that. I was like, why is everybody so quiet? So the elevator opens back up, and it was McGregor that had got on previously, but he didn't say anything. I guess he was just looking at me. Then as he's walking off, as he's walking off the elevator, then he got tough and was like, "That was a pussy video, yeah." And then I just started busting out laughing when I looked up and saw who it was, and we all started laughing.
So when he got on, he was staring at you, but you were looking down at your phone.
Yes.
Wow. So that's why there was tension you could cut in the air.
I was going somewhere else. UFC was sending me somewhere else after that, and I had to review flights and okay it because they were on my ass about it. So I was like looking at them, and it was very quick. And he didn't say anything until he got off the elevator.
Wow,
So-
that's interesting.
So then he said that, and the doors closed?
Yeah, what happened then? You just laughed and that was it, or?
Yeah, I started laughing. I forgot exactly what was said. He said that was a pussy video, and I think Baboon actually said, like, yeah, it's because it was made about a pussy. I don't know. I don't really remember what was said, but it was something along those lines, like it was made about a pussy. That's why, he walked off and the doors closed, and that was it, and I was laughing.
Did he have backup, or was he the Lone Ranger?
I don't even know who was with him. I'm pretty sure. No, he's never the Lone Ranger. So he always has an entourage with him. So I'm pretty sure he had, I don't know if his corners were with him or his wife or girlfriend or whatever. I don't know.
Damn, we could have had an Artem and Habib moment there,
Yeah.
or a Bisping and Masvidal moment. You know what I mean?
Excuse me, this is Baboon Luis Palomino.
Luis Palomino.
I was gonna say, man, you know,
that's good backup.
We always talk about, you know, fighters you don't want to run into an alley, and I think a lot of the obvious choices come up, and probably more heavyweights than anything. But I'll tell you this, Ricardo, I was at an ACB show in California, and Luis, I don't know who he fought, but he smashed the dude up pretty good that night. He got the win, and at the hotel there were some sketchy characters, some sketchy Russians. I'll just leave it at that, guys. But I turned one corner and I saw Luis Palomino and his entourage, and I don't, you know, I was like, this guy's intimidating, and I was like giving him a compliment. I was like, hey, good job, Luis. Was that you? You were there? Okay.
I was in his corner for that fight. Yeah.
You're scary too, then.
The dude, right after the fight, the dude like ran up to Baboon and was like putting his finger in his face, and then Baboon like clocked him again.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was fired up.
Wow.
The guy was like, next time I fucking kill you. And, like, putting his finger in like, he set his finger one in his mouth almost. And so Baboon just clocked him. And I was like, oh, shit, here we go. I was ready to jump in, but luckily nothing happened. And then the following day, I was in the elevator with his opponent. So I was like, oh, shit, this is awkward. And,
after
the
fight was over?
He said, like, what's up? And, the following day after the fight.
Oh, and what happened?
No, but I thought, like, because he made trouble in the octagon, so I didn't know if anything was going to go down in the elevator. I was just,
Did you clench
ready,
your fist or a little bit?
He was cool and just. No, he was cool. He just kind of, I was like, "What's up?" or whatever. He said, "What's up?" and then got off the elevator, and that was it. But
that's good.
Like your buddy was saying, there were definitely some sketchy Russians there, so I was. Looking
so
over my shoulder right now.
They say things happen in 3. That's 2 good elevator stories. Give me another one. There's got to be another one. You've been fighting for a long time, brother.
I don't have any other good elevator stories, man.
Okay, how about a good hotel story? Was there any other
good hotel
passing bys with other teams, mad dogging, or stuff that almost went down?
Not really. I haven't been involved in too many altercations like that. For the most part, all my opponents have been respectful to me, so I'm respectful back. And, I'd rather have it that way. I don't need all the stupid drama and stuff like that. I like to speak inside the cage, so I can be professional outside.
When that thing happened with the elevator, you said you were there in Boston. You were fighting on that card?
No.
Oh, you weren't. Okay.
They had flown me out to announce my fight with Chad Mendes.
Oh, I see. All right, and do you think you would have been able to restrain yourself if you had been looking up and he was mad dogging you and it turned into something? Do you feel like you graduated to like, hey, I'm a professional,
no,
I'm just not going to do that, or
really
does the streets come out in you if it has to?
No, if I get in an altercation like that, I'm not stopping. And I'm glad nothing happened because my wife was pregnant at the time. Pretty far along. So if something would have happened in that elevator, it would have ended really bad.
That was a great story. Hell,
Yeah.
the interview's done. Good luck with the rest of your camp. No, I'm just
I was thinking about
Yeah,
something. If you get into shit with Luis Palomino, wouldn't an elevator be the last place you would actually want to fight him? Wouldn't that be the worst place to be with him?
I don't know. He's on my team now.
Yeah, I would not want to fight
I mean, I guess other than like a phone booth, right? An elevator with Luis Palomino?
Right.
Fuck, no, you're getting thrown out.
I want the closest encounter possible because if he's got a chance to move around and pop you in the face here and there, you don't want him moving. I want to rush him into a wall and hump his leg until he finally gives up. I mean, that's my game plan.
Can I ask one more dumb question?
Yeah.
All right. The Conor McGregor ride. If George and I are in the elevator as well, because we're innocent bystanders, are we expected to take sides? Can we just stand there and go, hey?
To, bro.
So you would be like, hey, those two fucking guys didn't take a side?
Together. Latinos stick together, and you know this. So if you guys didn't jump on my side, we'd have some problems.
That's funny, man. I just have my phone out then, ready to
You'd
yell
be World Star guy?
Yeah. I got to blow up my social media, man. It's not popping, so I think I can get a lot of views from that.
I think I would just missile myself into somebody, and then whatever happens, happens. So I'm hoping that he bats cleanup. So I run into whoever, and then I go, Ricardo, and then boom, 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 he hits, whatever. But I'm taking out somebody's legs.
Hey, one more thing. Yeah. How long did it take you to recover with what happened in the clot in your left leg after your last fight?
It took a few weeks. right after the fight, I got put on blood thinners when I found out it was a blood clot. They wanted to keep me on the blood thinners for 3 months, and I was like, pump your brakes, Doc. Let's try, 6 weeks and then reconvene and see where it's at. So I got away with being on it for 6 weeks. But there were just tons of follow-up tests that I had to keep getting done. And finally, after test, they're like, yeah, you're good now. And they're doing different tests on trying to find out, like, my body's propensity to, like, developing blood clots, if I was just at a higher risk, or if it was just kind of the perfect storm with being dehydrated, jumping on the really long plane to Argentina, and not moving because they flew me at night, so I fell asleep in my chair and, like, didn't get up the entire, and it's like a 11-hour flight, 11-hour flight.
And
so,
what did they figure out that it might be?
I think it was just that, I was in the beginning phase of my weight cut, just being a little bit dehydrated and just not getting up out of my chair and moving around.
Wow, that is scary, man. When I was reading that, I was
yeah,
like,
man, I thought I pulled a muscle, like, for anybody out there, any fighter or anything,
give us the
after
symptoms.
a long flight like that. Yeah, for me, it basically felt like a muscle pull at first. I wasn't able to straighten my leg out all the way, but then as the week went on, the pain, like, it got really sensitive, and anytime somebody touched it, it'd make, like, my whole body jerk. It was really painful that way, so it felt like a pulled muscle. The last thing I would have thought it would have been was a blood clot.
If you would have shared this pre-fight, they probably wouldn't have let you fight.
I didn't know what it was pre-fight. Yeah, obviously, if it was a blood clot, I probably would have elected not to fight myself. But not knowing what it was and just thinking it was maybe a minor muscle pull, I was like, okay, whatever. I'll warm up. I'll be fine in the fight. My adrenaline will be pumping, and I won't think about it. But yeah, and actually, Clay Guida gave me a call. He had just fought out in Brazil, and he was having some numbness in his leg. So he called or texted me and was asking me what the symptoms were. So at least some guys are getting wise to the possibility of that.
Whoever's listening, I've heard this before, but for sure check with your physicians. But I heard that a lot of people will take a little baby aspirin on long flights.
Yeah.
A lot of people, there's certain socks you can wear. I can definitely recommend standing up.
Socks.
Compression
socks.
Yeah. Stand up and walk around. Look, it's nice to just knock out for a certain amount of time. A lot of people will take certain pills and just knock out. Our friend Amir Sadala, I think, slept 11 hours once from Chicago to Turkey. Yeah. But, no, it's a real serious thing. And I'm sorry it happened to you, but I'm glad we can talk about it and that you're okay. And you've been checked out since then. I mean, this was late last year. And but that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
Here's why it kind of hits home a little bit. We had a listener of ours who called our show every day for 10 years. One day we woke up and we found out that he had passed away, and it was from an embolism. It was a clot in his calf. And so when I read about what happened to you happened about a year after what happened to him. His name was Rick Budo. May he rest in peace. But I was like, wow. Like, when it especially hits home, you just start to pay a lot more attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. My brother grew up with a friend of his who passed away from the same thing too. A blood clot in his leg, and he didn't go get it checked out, and he was, walking to the bathroom and then just collapsed, and that was it. So I've heard tons of stories like that. My chiropractor knew a girl that went on a skiing trip, and she sprained her ankle, and then on the way home, she got out at a gas station, and same thing, collapsed, boom, because of blood clot. So it was definitely really scary when I found out what it was. I'm glad that all the tests they did came back okay.
Man, well, I'm going to change the subject a little bit.
Okay.
I want to know, Ricardo, I know you've probably been through different phases of your career, mentally and physically. Maybe we've heard from fighters that each one almost has like a different theme, where fighters have said, I'm going into this fight angry, upset, I'm fired up. Others have said, in this one I've decided to do more video work. I've changed this about my training. I've been with a mental coach.
I'm a vegan for a camp.
A lot of fighters have different themes to every fight. For this one, would you say it's any different? Is there any type of change mentally or physical for you in this one? Does it have like a theme?
Not for this one, really. I mean, for my last fight, I kind of went into a little bit of the mental side of it. Even talked with a guy who was a mental coach for a little bit, and I think that helped me out, and I kind of know what to do now to when it comes to those fight anxieties that we get and the nervousness that you get leading up to a fight. So I think that has helped me mentally. That's probably like the biggest change that I've implemented into my training regimen, recently.
Can you point to any fight in your career where the theme was fuck it, where you really just didn't do too much video, you just prepared yourself physically, came in and just fuck it, you fought?
I never do too much video. I'll watch a little bit here and there, and me just being a fight fan myself, I'm familiar with tons of the fighters on there. So if they, book me with the guy, I kind of go back in my own head to the fights that I've seen of him just watching UFCs. But I don't sit there and overanalyze. My coaches will watch film. They'll kind of train me accordingly. So I guess it's like every fight I'm like, fuck it, let's go in there and fight.
All right, Dan Tom, you got something for Ricardo Lamas?
Hey, Ricardo, I just wanted to kind of pick your brain on your opponent. I know the term, diverse or well-rounded fighter gets thrown around, but I truly feel like you're one of those guys. You truly can do it all, mix it up, and fight in all the phases. So I get curious on how you can't tell us your approach per se, but maybe your breakdown of the fighter. When I look at, Calvin, it's a hard guy maybe to get a read on because he fights very smart. It's hard to get him kind of out of his shell. And he really composes himself well, but I was just curious, what's your take on him?
He's a good fighter. I think the first time that I saw him and he kind of came on my radar was his fight against Burgos, who's just coming off a nice win to us from Cub Swanson. But just that fight itself was just an awesome fight to watch. They went at it. Is it Cater or Qatar or is it
Cater?
Qatar?
I know, yeah, Qatar. Qatar there.
Cater. Well, Calvin Cater, he's a wicked pisser, that guy. Oh my God. He's good. He's got good hands. I'm excited for this challenge, man. He's a young up and comer. He's a really solid fighter, very well rounded. Like I said, he's got great hands. He stays very technical with his boxing, very tight. He slaps that jab out real good and uses it to set up his right hand. So that's kind of what I'm expecting going into this fight.
You gave us a Michael Jackson. You gave us a Conor McGregor, and you just gave us a Chowderhead from
Boston. Sound like
from
Peter
Boston.
Griffin.
Is there any popular UFC notable or a fighter that you can imitate that you're holding back on?
I don't know. When people put me on the spot, I blank. So it's just got to come out naturally.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Dominic Cruz, DC, Paul Felder, all those guys that broadcast. John Anik, you can't do any of those guys? Chelson?
No, not really. Not really. I'd have to listen and give an effort towards it.
Okay. All right. Well, next time. And, folks, Ricardo owns a UFC gym in Naperville, Illinois. Go over there and check it out. He opened it a couple years ago, and we'd like to promote, of course, everything that's going on with these fighters outside of the octagon. He did a lot on this. This is his baby, so check it out on Twitter at UFC Naperville for more information. All right, Ricardo. Hey, thanks so much for the time as always. Good luck with the rest of your camp. I won't even say safe travels to Chicago because it'll be right up the street for you, man. It's a home game, so enjoy it.
That's right. All right, thanks a lot, guys.
All right, take care. We'll see you. On Twitter at Ricardo Lamas MMA. And we're going to take our last break. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, channel 156.
If you cross them, they will destroy you. Just ask Three Finger Eddie and Pete the Penguin. Who are they, you ask? My point exactly. They are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
If you missed any part of the show, don't forget to download the SiriusXM app. All the shows on Fight Nation Channel 156 are available in HD quality and commercial free. Also, tomorrow, Goes and I will be broadcasting on Sportscaster for UFC on ESPN Plus 10, so check it out. Go to www.sportscaster.com/MMA Junkie. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's when we will be live watching along with you guys. So check it out and have some fun. We'll also have a bobblehead to give away. All right, Dan, Tom, what about you got? Any shout-outs?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout-out to Laura Badish over there at Nemiroff Vodka. Nemiroff Vodka, the official vodka sponsor of the UFC.
I've had that. That's good.
Yeah, me too. And you know what? I don't know about you guys. I wasn't a vodka guy. Early on I was, and I think maybe some people are because when you're getting into the liquor, you're like, vodka's easier to take, and there's not a strong taste to it. I would go with the Grey Goose, which I feel like is not super high class, but pretty high class up there. That was like the gold standard for me. Not anymore, man. They're not paying me to say this, just being honest. It was provided a sample. So I really wanted to thank Laura because Nemiroff, I put them above Grey Goose. It was super clean, and they sent me this other one too, and I thought I was going to, not just I thought I was going to hate it. It was like honey pepper, but I don't know, so I'm a bourbon.
Really?
Yeah, it's honey pepper vodka. I don't know if it's an official Ukrainian thing or not because they're from Ukraine, Kiev there. But maybe because I'm a bourbon guy, I like a little bit of a kick, because I'll just drink my bourbon or my whiskey neat or scotch. I actually really, really dug it, and I was reaching for that one more. I still got some samples. I gotta bring them in. So maybe you guys want to try the other flavor? You said you
as you
tried
can
the
see,
one.
I'm a vodka fan, so sure, I'd love to try Nemiroff with
awesome.
my Gozy here. I can always
Cozy.
I'll have one with you,
let
George.
the waitresses know.
But yeah, I just wanted to give a shout. Thank you for giving some love to the member of the radio show here for that. I appreciate that little care package.
We're not going to have time to go through the rest of the card. Check out Dan's podcast, the Protect Your Neck podcast on iTunes. He goes through the whole card there. And that way you're a little bit wiser as you lead into UFC on ESPN Plus 10. You all want to go out there and hit them parlays, right?
Yeah.
Want to thank our guests for the week, Ali Abdelaziz, Dave Manley, Eric Albarracin, Lance Palmer, Joanna Janjacek, Frankie Edgar, Damon Jackson, Derek Krantz, Steven Seiler, Rashad Evans, and Ricardo Lamas. Been a fun week, huh, guys?
Very fun.
Yeah. Well, Kevin Lee and Rafael Dos Anjos, I can't wait for that fight. And it's a scary one. We really want Kevin to pull through. He's a local, and he's co-hosted this show a lot. Nothing against Dos Anjos, but look, why be dishonest with you all? That's just the way we roll over here. All right, we are out of here. Big shout out to Nico for producing today. I don't want any problems with him. I hope he has a really nice weekend.
Yeah.
Say hello to your family. Nico, please give them my best. Of course, a shout out to Jumbo Josh as well. For Dan and Goes, I'm George. I'm going to have a nice weekend myself, and I'm also going to go out there and do what you're supposed to do, and that's be a champion.